Bob had never been on a blind date before, but when his coworker Lisa insisted he meet Mindy, he decided to give it a shot. After all, Lisa described Mindy as quirky and fun, and Bob figured it would be nice to meet someone different. The date started innocently enough at a small, local diner. Bob arrived first, nervously fiddling with his silverware while he waited. When Mindy entered, she was dressed in a vintage polka-dot dress with mismatched neon sneakers, and her energy was palpable. "Hi, Bob. You must be the brave soul Lisa talked about," she greeted him with a booming laugh. Bob chuckled nervously and offered her a seat. Quirky, he thought Lisa wasn't kidding. As they exchanged pleasantries, Bob noticed Mindy seemed to have a knack for derailing the conversation. When he asked about her hobbies, she went on a 10-minute tangent about how she was convinced squirrels were government spies. Bob laughed awkwardly, assuming she was joking. But when Mindy whipped out her phone to show him a slideshow of squirrel surveillance evidence, he realized she was deadly serious. The first red flag, but Bob decided to roll with it. Things escalated quickly when Mindy ordered a bowl of clam chowder, not unusual on its own, but she brought out her own pouch of powdered cricket protein and began sprinkling it liberally into her soup. "Gotta keep my iron levels up," she explained, ignoring Bob's incredulous stare. Okay, Bob thought, still manageable, but the real chaos began after dinner. Mindy suggested they take a walk to a nearby park where a spontaneous art performance was supposed to happen. Bob, eager to salvage the night, agreed. When they arrived, Mindy led him to a shadowy corner of the park where a small crowd was gathered around a man wearing a tinfoil hat and juggling flaming bowling pins. "Welcome to the underground art revolution," Mindy whispered dramatically, as if she were unveiling a grand secret. Before Bob could process what was happening, the performer pointed at him and shouted, "You! Join me!" The crowd cheered as two men in capes emerged, grabbed Bob by the arms, and dragged him toward the makeshift stage. Mindy clapped enthusiastically. "Wait, what's happening?" Bob yelled, but his protests were drowned out by a drumbeat. The next 10 minutes were a blur of absurdity. Bob was forced to juggle rubber chickens while reciting Shakespearean insults, all while the tinfoil hat man shouted cryptic encouragement. The crowd howled with laughter, and Mindy recorded the entire spectacle on her phone, yelling, "This is amazing." When Bob was finally released, disheveled and humiliated, he turned to Mindy, who was still laughing. "That was incredible, right?" she said, her eyes sparkling. Bob, however, had reached his limit. "No, it wasn't incredible. It was insane. What kind of date is this?" Mindy looked genuinely puzzled. "Oh, come on. You have to admit it's more fun than a boring dinner." As Bob opened his mouth to respond, a giant, costumed person dressed as a banana appeared out of nowhere and started handing out flyers. Mindy grabbed one and gasped, "Bob, there's a midnight costume race in 30 minutes. We have to go." "No, absolutely not," Bob said firmly. Mindy frowned. "Well, Lisa said you were adventurous." "Guess not." Bob stared at her in disbelief. "Adventurous? This isn't adventurous, it's unhinged." He turned and began walking back toward his car. Mindy chased after him. "You're seriously leaving?" "We were just getting started," she shouted. Bob didn't look back. As he got into his car and drove off, he made a mental note to avoid blind dates forever. Meanwhile, Mindy shrugged, pocketed the banana race flyer, and headed back to the park to join the costumed crowd. Lisa, the coworker who set them up, received an earful from Bob the next day. When asked why she thought he and Mindy would be a good match, Lisa simply shrugged and said, "She's quirky and fun." Bob never spoke to Lisa about his dating life again.